Rapport podcast, proving time and time again that success is 1% inspiration, 98% perspiration, and 2% attention to detail. Here are your hosts, TBT and Ace.
What's up, guys? I am TBT. That guy over there is Ace. And this beautiful specimen in the middle is my dear friend. Yes, I'm talking about you. This is our dear friend, Reggie Bügmüncher. Oh, it's been so long since I've been able to say that name, and man, does it feel good. Welcome.
He has been very excited about this since he brought it up to me like 2 months ago.
I've been so excited I've not needed a little blue pill for like 2 months.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been too long.
Yes, it has. It has. Let me just read your bio real quick because I don't like to write. So those who are unfamiliar with Miss Reggie, she is an American entertainer based in Sacramento. She's half of the Old City Sideshow and has been performing in circus and sideshow for over a decade. As a solo performer, she travels the country working everything from the Midway to nightclubs and variety shows. Reggie is one of the few women in the world performing several unique acts, such as the Anatomical Wonder Act, I love it with the tennis racket, and riding a motorcycle in a high-wire thrill show. She's appeared on The Gong Show, America's Got Talent, been featured in stories by news outlets from Fox to NPR, and in books and magazines on tattoos and sideshow. She's opened up for Primus, suspended for Jane's Addiction, performed for Ripley's Believe It or Not, and at tattoo conventions across the globe, and has been married to me 3 times, and we have 2 lovely children.
Both
Only
grown.
2?
Yeah, only 2.
But
We
3
figured-
times?
Yeah, responsible.
Yeah, we figured out that we could use protection after 2. Duh.
So you're one of the few people that figured out what causes that.
It was by accident.
Yeah.
Let me jump into the chat real quick. Welcome our norms, Natalie, our moderators in there. Apparently, we have now calling all of our people the poor heads. I don't know if that's sexual or what. Natalie says, "Welcome, Reggie."
Hi.
She says, "What a bio." And at first, I read that wrong, but anyway, let's get right into it. You've been doing this sideshow stuff for as long, at least before I met you. I know you were doing it, and I seen you back in 2013 was the first time I had ever ran across you. And then 2014, I think you came back the following year. I then introduced my daughter to sideshow, and she couldn't take her eyes off you guys. She absolutely loved it. Between the fire eating and the nail bed laying and the tennis racket, she was just like, "Dad, I'm going to do that." Well, she's now in the Air Force and she's not doing that, but
Choices.
There's time.
right.
There's time.
So how did you get started in this?
Oddly enough, it has like a very nerdy beginning. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pontani sisters
Oh yeah.
or Los Straitjackets. But there was a tour that Los Straitjackets did where the Pontani sisters were dancing and they had choreographed numbers to go along with this surf rock band. And a college boyfriend had taken me to this show, and I was just like, in my head, I was thinking, oh God, another boring ass show for the music he's into that I'm not into. And lo and behold, I get into this venue, and it's like the most beautiful, amazing women I've ever seen in my life. And I was in college. I was grown at that point, and I was still like your daughter, where I was like, I want to be like those ladies. And I was just, I remember some guy had put his beer up on the bar because it was right at that length, like right about eyesight. And she came over, tap, and bang, and just kicked his beer right into his face. And I was like, I want to be a Pontani sister and kick beers in men's faces the rest of my days. And I didn't go that route, but I did. I was hanging out with a couple of friends of mine, and one of them said, hey, somebody just posted your picture on this friends-only internet forum. So a friend of ours had started an internet forum with his friends in Philly and his friends in Jersey, just, selfishly, but community-based, to keep all of his people in track. And this was, pre-Facebook times, and it was just very small group of people. And somebody had posted a picture of me and said, I saw this girl and she's on my friends list and I think she's beautiful. So I immediately, like being the attention seeker I am, like signed up, joined an account. And Danny was on there. And Danny's wife was a super admin. And Martin, our old sword swallower, was also on there. And so was his wife. And so I wound up being friends with their wives for a bit. But then Danny and Martin decided they wanted to start a sideshow. And Danny had gone to Coney Island Sideshow School. Martin had done pyrotechnics with Ringling Brothers and a couple of other things. And I wanted to join. They were not excited about having me. But they did know that nobody wants to stare at two dudes on stage for 45 minutes. So they were smart enough, yeah, they were smart enough to take me in. And that's kind of how we started.
That's awesome. I just snuck in. Yeah. So are you still in contact with everybody back in Philly?
Yeah, for the most part. You know, Danny's in Florida now. He's married to an ink. Yeah, he's married to a stunning ink master lady, Emily Elgato. So yeah, he's just living his best life in Clearwater right now. And we occasionally do shows together, but he's gone back to school and he also has a job that's really concentrated on the weekends. So until that changes around, we're not going to be doing as much as we used to. So it's me doing solo stuff. Our old sword swallower, I don't think that he was cut out for the sideshow life. I think that, you know, it was one of those things that I think that his family was cool with when it was a hobby. And then as we got more successful and it became less of a hobby and something that, you know, you really kind of, at some point with things like that, you really have to decide if it becomes successful, if you're lucky enough. You know, you have to make a decision. Am I going to do this full time or is this going to be a part-time job? Is it going to be real serious or am I going to continue just doing it for fun? And I think that he just kind of decided that it wasn't for him anymore. But most of the people in Philly that I know have moved. You know, they've moved to Florida. They've moved to different parts of the country. I still have some friends left there, but I don't know.
It's not so much the old stomping grounds anymore.
No, it's not. It's crazy.
I can't believe Danny's married in Florida and just doing the grown-up life.
Oh, it's so good. He's having a blast.
That's awesome. So I know Ace has probably got tons of questions because I every time you say sword swallowing, he laughs or he shakes his head and I think he's just trying to comprehend all of this. What so when you got into it, what did you have a goal of like, I want to do these type of things or I want to do this? Or was like there a school that you said, well, today I'm going to go lay on some nails and tomorrow I'm going to stick something up my nose, pull it out and make it a straw and pour beers down people's throats? That's one of my favorites, by the way.
Yeah.
That caused our second divorce, but that's another story.
Well, you know,
it involves another man, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it kind of was like a really anticlimactic, nerdy entry, but most people, at least in the old school way, and because I had grown up like kind of in that tattoo world of like, you should have an apprentice and you should do this and you should do that, you know, and I know kids now, they just buy a machine off eBay and they practice on stuff because everything's available, but it's the same with sideshow. You know, there's people that are learning now, like they're learning how to sword swallower on like on YouTube, on, you know, through people remotely on Zoom and stuff like that, and that's fine. Because I know some amazing sword swallowers that didn't go like by the old school traditional ways of doing it. But it was important for Old City Sideshow that we do that, which is why we were a silent act for a while. We had a talker that talked our acts for us, and we didn't speak for a while as entertainers. And it was important for me to get a mentor. So I started off doing the Geek Act, which is the entry-level traditional sideshow act where you're eating live animals on stage, insects, bugs, which is why my last name's Bügmüncher.
What?
Ironic. Yeah. Which is like it's kind of hilarious because after doing it for a bit, I developed a very severe life-threatening allergy to insects and shellfish.
Goldfish.
Oh my god! Well, I can still do the goldfish and the night crawlers. I just, for the most part, don't.
Eat the goldfish. You have to chew it. I saw that in an interview. You talked about that.
Yeah, and so I chewed them, but I think at some point I stopped doing it. Just because you're traveling to different towns and you're not able to like clean them thoroughly and just eating these tubes of shit. like, because you don't have time. Yeah, to the earthworms and the mealworms and everything else, you're supposed to put them in other grains so that way they can like eat cornmeal all night or eat grits all night, and that way all the garbage they've been eating is gone by the time you eat it. But I'm flying into a city and some nice person's kind enough to drop off a goldfish and worms for me because I don't have a rental car for those 2 days, and I'm just eating garbage. So I was like, that's an act that maybe I don't need to do anymore. And I found somebody to study under. So I got a mentor who's a really famous sword swallower and escape artist. He was a clown. And I learned from him and got permission to use and modify acts for my own means, which is just like a tattooer, you find an apprentice, they beat you down. Like every now and then I'd get a message like, oh, wow, saw that interview you did. Do you think that's in your best interest? Oh, Christ. you know?
So what took you to California?
I was in a really long distance relationship, ironically, with somebody from Philadelphia that I didn't know was from Philadelphia. We didn't meet each other when we were in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that caused our first divorce.
Well, beaches.
I know.
Yeah, so my friend we had been on this West Coast tour, and a friend of mine was hooking up different places for us to stay. And this one spot that we stayed in LA, they were like, you are gonna love the person we're staying with. And boy, did I. And it kicked off a romance, and we were long distance for a couple of years. And then I moved out to LA. We got a house in Riverside County, and then the beginning of the pandemic, we realized that we were not suited for each other. I think as many people who were all of a sudden trapped in a house 24/7, and he was also in the entertainment industry. And so my son is also in the entertainment industry. And so all of us were locked down in this house in the middle of the desert. I shit you not, like on a mountain, 2,100 feet up. Like, I mean, I got out of there.
Yeah.
I can imagine the scene there where the three of you are cooped up together and someone's over in the corner juggling, someone's practicing their sword swallowing, and someone's blowing fire and, breathing fire. Like that would get dangerous and old real quick. How, stop blowing your fire on.
God, I wish that had been happening. That sounds like a real healthy level of danger to have been happening. That was not what was happening.
You just burnt my goldfish.
So you say there's a sideshow school?
Yeah, so the Coney Island sideshow by the seashores that you see like all the time when you Google sideshow, and they do a classic 10-in-1, which means that they have a bunch of performers and each performer comes out and does an act. And so you pay your admission, you walk in, and there's bleachers, and you sit down at the end of the bleachers, and throughout the show, you move down, you move down, and you move down, and by the time you get to the other end of the bleacher, the show is back where it was when you started. Like when you walked in at, like, let's say the sword swallower. And so by the time you get to the other end, the sword swallower is coming back on stage and you're like, oh, there it is. That's the show. And you hop off. So it kind of goes nonstop for several hours a day of just like them kind of churning out what's called a grind show. And the performers get little breaks in between. So you've got like, 10, 15 minutes and then you go do an act, 10, 15 minutes and you go do a quick act. And so they have a school also, and it's the Coney Island Sideshow by the Seashores. Sideshows by the Seashore. I know. Yeah, but there's also mentors other places, people that are established and they've been around for a while, and you'll find them if you're in different Facebook groups like Sideshow Spectrum. They'll say, hey, I'm accepting students for my fall class, and they're usually capped around like 6 to 10 people, depending on the skills that they're teaching. Sometimes they're concentrated just on escape. Sometimes it's sword swallowing, but sword swallowing is its own bag. A lot of people won't teach it just because it's really dangerous and you don't want to be responsible. But it also, I think a lot of people didn't have good sword swallowing teachers. So somebody might have taught you how to swallow a sword, but they wouldn't tell you how to manufacture or treat the blade, how to make sure you're keeping all of the rust off of it. Like any little divot, any little nick that happens could just tear apart your esophagus. So these are all little things that like you need to be taught on what to look for, how to handle your own equipment, take care of that stuff. And I think frankly, a lot of people don't want to be responsible for teaching somebody all that and then anything that could happen.
But wouldn't you, on the other hand, want to teach someone how to do it correctly so they're not learning off of YouTube or, any other space? I think that would be responsible. Someone's teaching you the right way to do something.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like just with like tattooing, just because somebody comes into your shop and says, "Teach me how to tattoo," doesn't mean that you have to accept them. You know,
Right.
it's not my responsibility to make sure somebody does it the right way. Because I've had plenty of people say that they wanna learn stuff from me, and I don't because I mean, also let's say that they learn from me, they do it the right way, they do all this other stuff, and then they wind up being like a really shitty person. They wind up, like they wind up having really shitty acts, and they wind up saying and doing things online where they're just kind of like, oh, well, you know how they got into this? Reggie brought them into this world. And then it's kind of like, because you're not just responsible for, the decisions they're making performing, like all of a sudden you are now associated with that person forever because there's not a lot of us. When
This is
somebody asks me how I.
That's like pro wrestling. Like in the old days, when you brought someone in, that's your boy. And you're
Yep.
responsible for that person. So you didn't pick just anyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Somebody winds up being some weird raper. I'm just not interested in them being like, oh, Reggie was the one that brought him into those burlesque shows, bringing the wolf into and I'm just like, oh, no, not mine.
so Natalie in our text in our chat wants to go back a couple minutes and wants to know what's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten. The answer to this caused our third divorce.
Man. Well, I'm trying to remember what caused the third divorce because I think that was all you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was, but it was a jar.
God, trying to think. I haven't been as selective about things as I should have been in this life.
I don't see anything. I mean, anything that you're talking about is not really weird to me. Worms, grubs, fish. I mean, this is all the kind of stuff that you eat on a normal day. You just don't know. Or if, the zombie apocalypse hit, I'm going to be eating that shit so we can survive.
Or when I was 5.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I would almost say a sword because you didn't digest that. So that'd be my answer.
Yeah, I would, swords for sure. Probably like a hissing cockroach was the nastiest thing that I ever ate.
Like taste-wise for you?
Yeah, and just like, something that large, you're feeling a lot more than you really want to.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Movements, ugh.
But maybe there's satisfaction in the fact that he hissed at you, and now you're eating it.
Heck, it could be.
Like, take that.
Well, I'm gonna share this picture with everybody that's watching. Reggie, you've already seen it. This is you and I and Danny back in 2013. We look exactly the same as we do now, but whoops, that's not it. Let me get the other one. There it is.
That's only 2013?
Did I say 20? Yeah, 2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the last 9 years have been a bitch.
I should have guessed because of the sideburns.
Oh my God. Danny looks so different. I wish we had a picture of Danny now too.
Really?
Oh, if he's watching, he's gonna be like, "Oh my God, why are you showing my fat pictures?"
Wow. See, I tell you what, I left there and I said one day I will marry her, and they said which one? I said the cockroach eater.
The nasty one.
Yeah, I was like, I want that nasty one. I was in love from that day on. Gosh. And here we are reunited so much long afterwards.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Well, as long as you keep sending those checks.
Yeah, the kids are like in their 20s now, but I'm still sending them, so I don't understand.
It's why I'll never remarry.
It's love. So, according to your website, when I was looking at it earlier, you're still doing some shows this coming summer for 2023?
I am. I had when the pandemic started and we lost our jobs, I wound up getting into healthcare. So I worked in healthcare for 2 years in COVID-based facilities. And now that that's over, I have been able to start working other places that I'd rather be. So I have the Philly convention scheduled for January, and I have probably 8 other conventions booked already for next year. I'm hoping to do a bit more. And I started an event services company here in Sacramento that I hope to base around wedding entertainment and things like that. Like bringing, there's not a lot of sideshow in this area. It's strange.
Really?
Yeah, the culture on the West Coast is clearly a lot different than it is, back where we're from. And they are really, really into, I mean, everybody out here is a burner. So everyone's a fire dancer. So they all wear dirt cheap. It's like, it's like basically the equivalent of being a band out here. Everyone's a burner. Everybody does fan dancing and like they all love fire dancing, which is, it is what it is, but
Sure.
it's just, it's redundant and it's not interesting or creative. It's the same step over and over and over again, but with like different footwork.
That actually surprises me.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of, so for all of them, like you can throw a stone out here and just hit 30 fire dancers, but rarely do any of them eat fire. And of the ones that eat fire, none of them are doing fire breathing. And so that's where I kind of step in. But I think that people are so unfamiliar with what I do here. And I haven't really pushed too hard for stuff. So I plan on doing a lot more in that department. But yeah, like, they're really big into aerial, a lot of like trapeze stuff, a lot of contortionists. Like, it's very California in the sense that everybody wants something visually pretty that doesn't challenge how they think, that doesn't challenge how they feel. It's like the opposite of like New York, where it's like you want to go in there and fuck with your feelings and really experience something. I want you to walk out thinking. Instead, in California,
right.
I think nobody.
There would be a visceral reaction. I would think there would be a real deep reaction.
Yeah, out here it's more just kind of like I will pay $100 just to go in and look at something pretty that doesn't challenge me and makes me feel good about my day. And that's all it is. So that's, there's a couple of sword swallowers out here. They don't really work that much. And the ones they do, they're not doing like crazy, thought-provoking kind of stuff because it just doesn't sell. I've met with a couple entertainment companies out here, that do really big gigs, like to start working more locally. And, they're like, yeah, well, we don't get nobody really wants sideshow out here, but, come next Halloween, we'll definitely hit you up.
Oh, wow.
And I'm kind of like, but that's really how it is out here. And so I was just like, well, it's gonna.
You're saying it's almost disposable and you forget about it as soon as you walk out the door. But when we see something like what you're doing, we're going to get a reaction and we're going to feel something and we're going to remember it.
Well, I think some of that has to do with I'm talking too. So, I think in sideshow you get like the reaction not just to the act and what's happening, but you're having some kind of conversation about like, I mean, I have seen really thought-provoking avant-garde burlesque acts on the East Coast. I've seen like some really like next level performance art for, all of it. But like that involves a certain level of like communication that I think that most people aren't really prepared for. They want like a size 6 with giant tits to come out, do a classic fan dance, boom, and they'll pay out the ass for it here. It's crazy. And the same thing with like, they want somebody to come out and do some fire fans and dance around and undulate their body and do a big smile and then get the fuck out of there, And then
wow.
But then but I'm not saying that I'm like the best or be all. And like, I'm sure there's people that walk away from stuff that I do not thinking about it later. But that's the difference too, is, the narration, the trip that you take them on. It's more than just visual. It's something else. And that's part of like the entertainment of the sideshow. It's like you felt something when that guy was talking. You felt something when you heard about their backstory and their life. And then you watched them eat like live animals on stage or do this, like, because that's its own head fuck, watching what's happening. Yeah. And then on top of it, you're like, oh my God. And I'm processing that, everything else that's happening. So it's a lot.
Yeah. Cause you guys are very, very telling, like in your story, how you're, well, I hope we really don't screw this one up because the last time I took his nose off, and this is right before, the bullwhip goes and, takes the cigarette out,
Yeah.
or when you're getting somebody up out of the crowd to be a helper, I want you to smash this. I'm not hitting you that hard. No, it's okay. Go ahead. I'm gonna put this cinder block here, and I just want you to swing. I mean, you're getting that crowd involvement. You're getting that mind fuck because, like you said, you're telling a story with it, and I think, yeah, if that's like a total East Coast thing, I'll stick to it because. I mean, that's what I need. I need that visual and I need you talking to me and whispering sweet nothings like the worm will be okay. And I'm like, yeah, do it to me. So, you know, it's, sure, I could go and watch people, you know, fan and fire dance and to take nothing away from that, it's great.
It's
But
great. It's awesome. But when it's at every, venue and every party and every single thing, it's the go-to fallback. Like, if every show you went to had sword swallowing, you wouldn't be impressed by sword swallowing.
right. It's
But
like
it's
going to the
burning.
same concert on the same tour 5 or 6 different times and they never change the set. It's a great concert, but I'm kind of bored because there's nothing changing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's awesome. I want to go back before we get too far away because I don't want to sleep on the fact that when COVID hit, you were out there kicking some ass. You
yeah.
guys don't know, but Reggie has a master's degree in disaster medicine and management. Um, and my understanding is when COVID hit, I mean you turned into like super Reggie, and you were like, "Fuck this virus, I'm gonna knock it out," and you like ate it and all kinds of crazy shit.
How did you get that degree? I have never heard of that degree.
College, duh.
Yeah, I just never heard of it. That's fascinating.
It's really closely related to an emergency management degree, but it has a medical aspect. So it's got some epidemiology classes. Basically, I went to school for pandemics and management, and then I didn't use it for 10 years. And then all of a
And then
sudden,
all of a
pandemic
sudden,
happened. I was unprepared. It's like, oh God.
yeah, in one aspect you're like, crap, a pandemic, and then the other aspect you're like, wow,
Hell
a
yeah,
pandemic.
pandemic.
Yeah. I was honestly really thankful and so lucky because I had so many friends that were entertainers that, had very limited options in terms of, because I mean, like, even like other friends that I have that have master's degrees or they have, like an English degree from the greatest university. I mean, like, it didn't help out anybody. Everybody
Schools
was just,
closing,
oh,
conventions not being allowed to happen. I mean, we were look at the NBA. You know, pro sports were playing with no crowd. I mean, it, yeah, I can imagine.
we did the 2020 though. We did the Oklahoma City tattoo convention. Woo! They never shut down. And they never shut down Oklahoma City. They never shut down. They had no mandates, even for masks, like nothing ever. And so we went out and did it. I had luckily been, because I was a first responder, I got vaccinated early. Like I was one of the first people to get vaccines. And Danny didn't. So he was really just flying by the seat of his pants when we went there. And I was just like, well, I hope this thing works. And he was like, well, good for you.
Just keep rubbing it in. Thanks.
Yeah, and everybody that was trying to work was doing weird stuff. Like I found out, like I wore one of those face shields because as an entertainer, it doesn't matter. I could, there was a lot of cancel culture and public shaming for people that were still trying to work or figure it out that wasn't on Zoom. And so, Danny and I were trying to do the best that we could, with what we had and trying to make money and stay alive. And so at the end of the day, I was like, well, like I'm a healthcare worker. I'm around this all the time. I am vaccinated. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. But if somebody takes a picture and you're in the middle of a crowded convention center during a pandemic, we didn't want to look like people that didn't care, and we didn't want to look like people that were unhirable post pandemic. So like we tried those face shields. Holy shit, you cannot wear a headset mic in those things. I'll just give you a little heads up. That was just like the feedback, like everything that we thought that we could handle to at least look good in a still image was just not going to happen. So we were like, all right, here we go.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a catch-22 because you want to work,
Yeah.
but like you said, you don't want the bad optics. But on the other hand, you could do it safely. I mean, so yeah, it's rough.
And I was out working every day in the field, so why wasn't I able to go do something else? That's just kind of how I saw it. It was just kind of, I thought it was unfair.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were thinking that sort of thing. There were photos I saw, like, wasn't there like a pandemic in the late 60s? Yeah, 68 or 69. And it showed just pretty much normal life. This is the pandemic in this era. And then in 2022, well, 2020, we're just all sitting at home and getting angry at each other and, then finding another place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to know how you got involved with going on the Gong Show, America's Got Talent, all of these things. Did you seek them out or did they seek you?
They sought me, but that's not like unusual. It's not because I'm like incredibly special. But I, so America's Got Talent, they reach out to people constantly. I can't, I've probably been contacted about 50 times over the years. Um, yeah, they have agents just like any other TV show, and their entire job is to sit on Facebook and just find somebody that does something, and they contact you like for a
Internet
long time.
scouts.
Yeah, yeah, they're still I guess it's a job. But there were entire Facebook groups about like artists against America's Got Talent and all that other stuff. And then from there, it just kept springing off. And once I started doing those shows, very quickly, like you're in like this database of somebody who's a team player or willing to go along with their bullshit. So, and some of the producers are really nice, and some of them are just kind of like, eh. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to really have your attitude and what you want under control. And you can't be misled by no matter how charming or nice any of the producers are, because that's what they try to do. They look at you and they want to create a storyline and they want to create something that happens. And you have to be really firm about no, yes, this is what I do, this is what I don't. Like with the Gong Show, that was a nightmare for me.
Really?
Let me say,
Yeah.
before the show started, I watched that appearance, brief as it was, and I was irritated because I wanted to see what was going to happen. You come out with this cod piece, right, with the two prongs.
God, I miss that cod.
And you're using something to spark off of it, and that's about as far as we got before you're getting gone.
It was pretty annoying, and then it wasn't until I got there that I realized that I was kind of like the token problem child for the episode. So like they always want some type of because it's still TV, so they still need a drama arc. They need something to happen to make the episode look like it has a peak and then like a de-escalation. And it wasn't until I was there that I realized that was me. Because they don't tell you that. They're all very nice. They want to rope you in. And they're seeing hundreds of you a week, so they don't give two shits about my feelings,
Right.
So first off, I couldn't use the music that I normally have a choreographed act to. Because they don't want to pay for that music. So you have to use some of the music that they own. And then they want specific choreography. And then because you have to meet with the fire marshal of LA and all these other people, you can't wear your normal costume. It has to be either leather or fireproofed. And so they have all these different new rules, all these different things. So like you have to change your hair, your makeup, your costume, your music. And then before you know it, you're basically just trying to do a skill set in somebody else's act. So even then, I was like, you know what? I don't care about it. Like I'm here in LA. I'm going to do it while I live here. Put it on my website. It's a selling point for people that don't know any better.
Sure.
Because some people see it on the website and they're really impressed, and I'll get booked just because they saw that, not knowing that they contact thousands of people every single week when they're doing auditions.
Well, we'll edit that part out of this once we're not live.
Thank you. But they yeah, so I got there and we went through the whole thing several times, and the entire act was based around like I'm supposed to go out to this music, I'm going to pick up my nipple rods and screw them in, and there's an entire choreographed bit around that, and then I was supposed to start the grinding act, and then it's supposed to end with a big fire breathing act. So what you saw in that episode was me starting and coming out from behind the curtain with a mouthful of fuel. So the entire time, my mouth was full of fuel. And because I'm a live entertainer and I was not very well practiced at doing TV, what I should have done when I walked out there and saw that they had misplaced my nipple rods, what I should have done has said, cut, stop, and we'll start over. Because that's why they always say, like, you have your own agency. We're not trying to bully you. You get to do whatever you want. But in reality, that wasn't what I thought. I'm used to things going wrong and you just power through it. But what happened was I was the only person on that episode whose tattoos they didn't cover up. They covered up everybody else's tattoos because I was supposed to look like the bad girl. They put me in leather, bad girl leather, bad. And so like they left my stuff out, hoping I think that I would freak out, hoping that they would get their TV moment of like, here's this badass lady having a tantrum or being bad or doing something. But instead, I just kind of powered through and I did a really bad performance that wasn't even mine. And then they came over with a bucket at the end and I spit the fuel in, and I didn't get to do the whole rest of the act. And I told them, they're like, oh, well, you should have stopped the show. Sorry. Okay, bye. And that was it.
Yeah, thanks.
How is that your responsibility? I mean, they gonged you as soon as you got out there.
I should have just stopped it as soon as I realized my stuff wasn't there. It was basically up to me to stop all of production.
How can you stop it with a mouthful of kerosene or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I guess cut or whatever. But that's the position they put a lot of people in, which is why a lot of performers don't like being on those shows, is because they tell you that you're in control of everything. If you want to stop this whole production of 100 people and cost them all $1 million, that's your job to do that.
So you've learned to temper your expectations on these shows and learn to use it for what you want to use it for. If something good happens, it happens. If not, you got exposed.
And I think that's the mentoring that performers need. Sometimes the skill set, but it's the reality show, the TV world. Like, that's the mentoring that people actually need. Like, hey, this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to say. This is what they're going to try to get out of you. And, don't. This is what you have to have going on. And, nobody's ever allowed backstage with you. You're kind of like on your own and figuring it out. It's weird.
You're not hanging out with the other stars or anything, just eating bonbons and chilling.
On the Gong Show, I don't know if you saw who won that episode, but it was a woman who ate about 10 pounds of ricotta cheese.
Yeah.
Okay? Or cottage cheese.
Yeah. What's impressive about that?
The shits afterwards?
I mean, like,
if she could.
Well, that's what I meant afterwards. And like, I didn't say when, but, a couple days after.
Yep.
Gosh, that's just insane. So, did you get judged on America's Got Talent?
So I have that on my website on purpose. They did not air my segment.
Did I miss that?
Oh no, I was there. I spent 12 hours in that studio, and they put me on last of 2 shows airing, and just post Gong Show experience. I knew what was going to happen, and they came over to me and they said, hey, so like, if any of the judges have something to say to you, you really need to get the audience on your side, and then the judges will change their mind. And so I didn't know they were really coaching me at the time. I thought I was getting helpful hints, and I was like, oh, cool, yeah, whatever. And they also wanted me to do about like 5 acts in 2 or 3 minutes. Which is painful for somebody in Sideshow, because there's really only 10 or 12 acts in general. So that's why Sideshow people wind up winning America's Got Talent, because they want you to smash all of your material into 1 or 2 episodes, and then you're just, figuring it out forever as long as you can stay. Anyway, I went out, I did my blockhead shots, and Tyra Banks had a little cup where she was very grossed out by what I did.
Good.
And yeah, and then Heidi Klum basically was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's there, but I don't really see like a performance. You know what I mean? Like, the skill set's whatever. And at that point, the audience is like doing all the booing, and they're booing her, and I'm supposed to turn the audience around and make it like all exciting. And I'll tell you, I had been there for over 10 hours. And,
look, bitch, I don't care.
I was so mad about everything that they wanted me to do and everything that was going on. And I kind of just went full on Big Lebowski. And I was just like, well, that's just kind of your opinion, man. And you should have seen their faces. They were just like, because they had invested a fair amount of time with me. They contacted I had to get permission from my college boyfriend to use graduation photos that he was in. And like, it was a whole thing, because they wanted to do
his ass out.
Oh, they wanted a whole backstory on me.
Oh, of course.
So that was their bad girl moment. When you finally just said something like, whatever, whatever, that's your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long day too, 10 hours.
Yeah, it is. TV is such a weird experience. I definitely have no interest really in like I like being on these weird TVs now that I know what's going on. Like I did The Price is Right during the pandemic. That was weird. No audience.
Oh.
And yeah, like you don't go running down from the chairs. They call your name and then you go right to the podium.
Oh wow. It kind of takes
It
all the
was
fun
so
out of
You were a
it.
contestant.
Yeah.
So you weren't entertaining while we looked at the prizes.
Yes, you could win a new car.
Well, no, because there's casting agents. They're all the same for all those TV shows, the game shows, the reality shows, America's Got Talent, Gong Show, Price is Right, you name it. Like they're all the same casting agents. So once you're in that circle, they're like, "Hey, you want to be on The Price is Right this week?" And it's like, "Yeah, of course I do."
I did Family
Because they know
Feud
you
last
are.
week, so all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how Boston Rob kept getting on Survivor and The Amazing Race and whatever else you get on.
Back to Survivor 14 more
Back to
times.
Survivor. Right.
Is that on?
Survivor?
It's his favorite
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
He still watches it.
I still watch it. It's so horrible.
It's still on.
Because it never changes. It's, win an idol, don't get voted off, win $1 million. Okay, 20 seasons. The story has never changed. But yet my ass is still watching it.
They spiced it up a bit with multiple idols or casting you off to an island somewhere.
Sure, but the premise is the same. Don't get voted off and you'll win.
And they've never done it in a non-tropical climate.
No, I'm waiting for Survivor, Alaska.
Exactly. North Pole.
Yeah. Survivor, Greenland.
We will never see your face.
I'll stop watching it if they do that. I need tropical shit. Give me some sunshine, palm trees, that kind of stuff.
Now, I know somebody who watches one of those Survivor shows like on YouTube or something, and it's kind of the same thing. I think it's only like 5 people, but it's in like cold climates. It's like actually testing like real survivor skills. Like none of them interact with each other. So they're kind of just like figuring it out on their own, building their own stuff, keeping themselves warm. Like it looks awful.
And it's more realistic than Survivor, where they have to play a game of tic-tac-toe, and if they win, they get a bag of rice.
Right.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
So between all of the things that you do, I'm going back to Sideshow. What is, and I'm afraid you're going to answer this the way I think you're going to answer, and you may not, I may be surprised. What is your worst injury?
Worst injury.
Well, yeah, she's gotten hurt.
Really?
Yeah, ask her about her labia.
Oh yeah.
That definitely was one of the worst.
I heard about that.
Acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Angle grinder, right to the privates. Yeah, it was bad. I mean, luckily, and this is what I mean about like, not being able to really judge people based on what the persona you see on stage, because the woman who ran the burlesque troupe that I was doing the show with, is a nurse practitioner.
Oh,
and
wow.
so, and it was a back-to-back show. So I did the one show, the accident happened, we're in between shows, and I've got my leg up in the bathroom, and she's giving me butterfly stitches, and then, boom, show number 2, it's Valentine's Day, everybody better get it together.
People walking in the door going, I'll come back.
Yeah, that was a pretty bad one. Yeah, because I had a cape on, and I was trying to cover the cape, and then there was like blood running down my leg for curtain call, and I was like, thank you, goodbye.
Tampon, please, thank you.
So hopefully you had no date and no plans.
Never.
Yeah, she called me earlier that day and was like, "Hey, I'm going to have to cancel," and I was like, "Okay,
yeah,
that's weird.
We're off tonight."
And you're like, again?
No, is it your labia again?
Again. This time it's true.
Did you sprain it? No, I sliced it.
Yeah.
Although, I am going to start using labia strain or sprain as some type of excuse now. Like, listen, I strained my labia earlier. Yeah. I just can't. Thank you, though.
And then they agree with you. Like, yeah, I've done that too.
I did that once.
I understand.
That's like, when you're walking around, you're like, oh, my fallopian tubes are really hurting today. When a guy says it, they're like, oh yeah, man, mine
Sounds
too.
bad.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Right next to your rotary cup.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What's your favorite thing to do? Your favorite sideshow act?
Of all the things we do, and we don't know all the things you do yet. We haven't. So, what is your favorite?
I mean, I have a couple of acts that I really love just because I've done them so much. I'm in such control of these acts, and I know them so well, and I've experienced them going wrong in every way that they could, that when I do them, I'm on top of the world. I don't have to think about the act too much, and I can really command the audience and interact with them. And I think that is the next level in performances, when you've mastered this little act so much that what the reward is not just performing it, but bringing everybody in and being able to handle anything that could go wrong and take it to the next level. But I think the most challenging for me has always been sword swallowing. I didn't start sword swallowing until much later in my career. And I think that every time I've done it, because it has been so infrequently, it's like doing it again for the first time. So with sword swallowing, you have to really keep up with it. You have to do it on a regular basis, so that way it's not uncomfortable, so that you have a real handle of what's going on. And, I wait 6 months in between each time. And then every time it's like the first time, and it's a real bitch. But at the same time, it's so challenging. And, there's something really magical about finally, you psych yourself up, you get really frightened, you're worried about things, you doubt yourself, and then you do it. And it's, I'm one of the few people in the world that can do it. So it's not just overcoming something that, it was very hard for me, getting a master's degree, but it's something that's just kind of holy shit, I can't believe I just actually did that. Why don't I do that more often? And so it's really powerful. It's a powerful act for me to do.
So
very good answer. Very good answer.
Describe to me how this works. If you're, are you typically doing all of these acts, or are you typically doing one act as you described, going from one end of the bleacher to the other, while other people are with you doing these other acts, or is it just a mixture of anything that comes up?
Well, it depends. So my new slogan and the new banner that I have made is me calling myself the perfect 10 in 1. And that's because a classic sideshow like Coney Island is a 10 in 1 show, meaning 10 performers in one show doing 10 different acts. So I do a full 10 in 1. So now that Danny's not traveling, I've done a couple of tattoo conventions with just myself. So I'm doing a full 45-minute show by myself, doing all those acts and putting them together. And then I also, if there's a burlesque show or a drag show that wants me to come and perform with them, for the most part, I'm only doing, one act, maybe one act in each half of the show. But it's real simple to just kind of just breeze on in and do one thing. When you're doing a 45-minute show on your own, you're an island. And so that's been challenging in itself and really exciting. But then also, private parties, I'll get hired. People hit me up for, I want a 20-minute show. I want something to go on for 25 minutes at my mom's 50th birthday party. And I'm like, I got it. So yeah, it really depends. I like to be able to mix and match it.
That would be fun, having something like that at a party, especially your mother's birthday party or something.
Oh, hell yeah.
My mom's 82. That would be hilarious.
Bro, I'm bringing in Reggie.
That'd be so awesome.
What part of your act does burlesque and drag? What are they looking for when they want your act?
I think sometimes it just really. I think sometimes I get hired for a lot of these shows and they don't really necessarily know what I do or what it's going to be like. They just want to be supportive of a woman in variety arts, and they
Absolutely.
also are hoping to avoid what they call in the burlesque world titty fatigue. So, if you have a show, it's got a 40-minute first half and then an intermission, another 40 minutes here. And then you've got the same 5 girls coming out, and they're doing the act is different, the costume's different, but at the end of the day,
the titties are
when
the
they
same.
come out, yeah, and it's just storyline stripping boobs, storyline stripping boobs. So I think that they want to throw somebody like me in there to break it up, just to kind of make it a little bit more refreshing. Or, maybe the audience is so horrified that they're very thankful that this set of boobs is back. You know,
Bring on the boobs.
Bring on the boobs.
Because
they're like, bring back the other boobs.
you pretty much know when you go to a tattoo convention. I mean, you can pull out whatever you want out of your bag of tricks. You pull out, you're sparking everywhere, everything you can do, no big deal. But it kind of that was intriguing for me is what is a burlesque party, and what's the drag party? What are they wanting from Reggie? And you're probably right because
Yeah.
it doesn't really change in the middle of those shows, and then to add
Yeah.
the hot pepper, and for people to either go holy shit or puke and bring the boobs back, and so
I had a puker and somebody pass out all within the past month.
oh, I'm impressed.
Thank you. That's what I said. I was very excited. Impressed. I was
What
thrilled.
did we pass out from?
It was a young teen, and she passed out when I was doing my eye hooks act.
That's one of my favorites. Ace, do you know what we're talking about?
Is that when you hang the weights? Are we hanging weights from the eyelids?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is fascinating to watch, but it looks so painful. It looks so
and then
painful.
I had somebody. It's uncomfortable for sure. I was doing it. I don't know if you guys heard of the Winchester Mystery House.
Oh yeah.
But I got to perform there. I did 21 there over Halloween. Spooky as hell. So cool. They set up a courtyard with a big stage, and it was unbelievably beautiful. Because the house is still the same. They just add a couple of scare actors, but it's not overdone. It still retains its natural creepiness and not like neon light creepiness.
We're doing this show in a couple weeks with a spirit box, so yeah. So that whole you talk about that house, I'm just like, oh yeah, because I know all about that. I love that stuff.
That would be really cool for something like that. To have you off in the corner, or how would they do that?
That whole midway. So when you bought your ticket for it, you would basically have timed tickets. 3 shows a night. You would walk into the giant courtyard before you go into the house, and there was games to play. They had little skulls that you could play basketball hoops with the giant skeletons. They had fun cocktails. They had tarot card readers, and then they had me on a sideshow stage doing about 15 minutes of ambient stuff like glass walking and just being creepy. And they also had people on stilts walking around and ghosts and scary clowns. And then they had a quick stage show that was like 20 minutes. So it helped break up all the people that were getting into line and waiting in line to get into the actual house. But then they also got an added show on top of it. So it was like me and then another variety act that was either like contortion, or there was a really badass chick who played like a really weird car horns to different music while dancing. Just like really fun stuff. And then they had a little musical number, and then it would end and everybody would get in line and do the tour of the house. So it broke it up so it wasn't just 100 people waiting in line, right. But it also added more to this experience.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, instead of people just standing around throwing shit because they're getting bored.
I'll have to get there next time.
Ace, I want to see you. I want to see you hook your eyes.
I won't be hooking. I droop enough as it is. I don't need my eyelids. Well, they already do. I don't need it to help it.
Do it the other way.
There you go.
You could do at least 20 pounds with that. Yeah. Yeah. Hook them in and then just throw them back up.
Oh.
I might just grab a nail and a little hammer, and you'll be good.
We do the nail thing. Mm-hmm. We do the eyelid thing. Now, are those considered part of the 10-in-1, or are those just variations of other things off of that?
Well, the nail and hammer is called a human blockhead. So that's the human blockhead. Mental flossing is putting something in your nose and pulling it out of your mouth as if you're flossing your whole head.
Right.
And that's
love that.
Yeah, that's where the tubes come in, and then there's usually mouse traps on the tongue. Human stapling, depending on how you do it. It's like the human tip jar. People can staple money to you or pin the tail on the donkey, however you want to do it. There's variations on that act. Eye hooks, sword swallowing, fire eating and breathing, glass walking and dancing, bed of nails, bed of barbed wire, ropes escapes, straitjacket escapes. Like all that stuff. I mean, I did do circus for a couple of years. I was in Circus Una, so I was riding a motorcycle on a high wire in an all-female motorcycle thrill show for a bit.
Hell yeah.
How did you learn that?
Oh, man, let me tell you. So, like, Una is one of the most badass ladies I have ever met in my life. She had been looking for a new driver, and I had like my motorcycle endorsement, and I was like, well, I can do this, and I like circus, and I'm accustomed to manual labor. I'm the perfect hire. So I get there, and she had the whole rig set up in her backyard for me to learn and practice for the season.
Holy crap.
So I show up, yeah, I mean, badass lady. And like, so like, I show up, and she's like, all right, cool. So like, this is what you do. This is how this goes on. This is what's going on. Give it a shot. And I was like, all right. All right. I mean, you aren't going to go anywhere. I mean, the dangers with acts like that are really just like acts of God, equipment malfunctions, and things like that, at least for me, because riding the motorcycle, I'm literally, barely even getting out of first gear. I mean, I'm going 200 feet. So I'm not even hitting second gear. It wasn't even worth it because then I'm having to shift down twice, when I get to the end. So yeah, it's pretty badass and awesome. But for me, it was easy. I'm driving up to the end and stopping, the aerialist looking beautiful, waving around at everybody, and then I take it back into neutral. And they're doing acts underneath me the whole time, so they had all the hard work. For me, it was just most. And then the grand finale was me and Una. There's usually two aerialists underneath me. And for the final run, the extra one would get off. I hate to call them the extra one. I take that back in case any of them ever see this. None of you are extra.
We'll bleep that out. That wasn't true.
I know. But so me and Una would be left, and it's all centrifugal force. So we're swinging our bodies in tandem, and then on the count of 3, we both throw our bodies into it, and then spin around on the high wire 3 times, and then bring it back to the home base. But it's a sight to see. But for me, the skill set was really just being able to ride a motorcycle and to be like in good contact with my people and go back and forth.
That's first gear.
In first gear.
So when you're doing a full show, a 45-minute show, you're starting with what and ending with what?
It depends on the show. I like it if it's a particularly unruly crowd, I like to start with the angle grinder act just because it's very loud and it's very visual, and it'll like bring people in from across the room. But it also, like, let's say you're at a drunken convention or a convention where people are all spaced out. That is a good way for me not to have to go out there and scream, hey, everybody, pay attention.
Yeah, because it's freaking loud.
It's loud and it's big and there's sparks. And so it catches everybody's attention and they know to move to the stage.
And you can smell that metal burn too. And because I know that's what got me at first. I was like, the hell is that? And then you just hear and you follow that sound, and then you're caught for the rest of your life.
You're welcome. Yeah, so I like to start with that or the blockhead act, just because it's it's an easy opener, because you don't want to start with your most gruesome, you don't want to start with the most painful or hard. So it's like a good easy opener. There's a lot of talking, a lot of jokes, like get people really involved, and there's some light audience participation, but they're not on the stage, things like that. Yeah. Those two.
I gotta grab something, and Ace, I do this to you every freaking week.
This is all the time.
Yeah, I know, but I just thought of something I got to grab, and I had to look, and it'll take me like 20 seconds. So sing a song.
This time I have someone to talk to. So if you finish, are you finishing with the blowtorch or the sword swallowing, or you blowing fire, breathing fire?
I liked it. Well,
I mean breathing.
Yeah, the fire depends on the venue. So like a lot of venues have outlawed fire. They won't let us have fire there, but I like to close either with the eye hooks or with my bed of barbed wire, because they're both particularly gruesome. And I think that as much as there's comedy involved in all of them, I think that they're the kind of things that really get to some people. Like there's people that watch the entire show, they're not freaked out, but there's always a big dude in the back that's really creeped out by the eye hooks because he tried to put contacts in once and was traumatized, and now seeing that is just like too much for him.
And he's covered in tattoos.
I know.
And I can see now, listening to you describe a lot of this stuff, because professional wrestling, I mentioned before, started in carnivals.
They're
years and years
closely
ago,
related.
I can see the correlation now,
Mm-hmm.
much better than I did before. You mentioned barbed wire. I'm thinking barbed wire match.
Yep.
They do all kinds of gruesome stuff with pulling on ears with the gauges and trying to make that look really gruesome. I get it now. I see it.
So
Oh
one
yeah.
of the
I
I
was just
know,
saying they're from the same wheelhouse, and like wrestling, rodeo, burlesque, sideshow, they all have this like special connection that people don't ever put together. That, we all came from that same kind of like Americana, very special entertainment. Sideshow wasn't kicking off like in other places. Like these are American art forms that are really, you know, that started that whole variety, vaudeville circuit, all of it.
yeah, I mean, I
Well,
hate to say it, but when American Horror Story came out with the series or the season they had the circus and all
Yeah.
that, there were a lot
yeah,
of sideshow stuff. But I tell you what, that was my absolute favorite season
that was
Was
really
it?
good.
because I mean, it was relatable because you go and you see these things that not everybody gets to see, and your normal you know, uh, first class citizen or whatever, they're not going to go to these sideshows. You're not going to
Yeah.
catch them dead. Well, some of them you will because they have that secret life, but you won't catch them at tattoo conventions. But when they do go and they see this stuff, it's like watching Footloose. Wow, there's really stuff out there outside of my freaking high rise. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
There's a
got
lot.
these
What do you think?
during the pandemic, and they've been sitting up on my shelf ever since.
Oh wow. So,
What are we
oh
looking at?
my.
So this is Reggie, and these are candles, Saint Corona, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is some of the stuff that you were selling when you guys couldn't do shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of my dearest friends is a graphic designer, and he was also unemployed back in Philadelphia. And then, of course, my son was rigging for Marvel Live, and he had stopped in California just to visit me before he headed to Australia when his world crashed down. So we got locked in together, and I started reading about Corona, like when they were coronavirus. And so I looked up Saint Corona, and Saint Corona had been martyred she had gone and helped the wrong person. Basically, somebody was dying, she went to go help them, and she was going to be martyred. And what they used to do is they would pull two palm trees together, tie somebody to it, and then let go of the palm trees, and you would get ripped in half, basically. And that's how Saint Corona went. So I put together this whole costume, and we went out, and me and my son in the backyard, because I had these palm trees out there, and he rigged up all this rigging for me to get into, and I climb up into it in my costume, and we did about, I don't know, 1,000 photos that day. Sent the photos off to my friend in Philly who photoshopped all the coronavirus in there, the toilet paper, like
That's what I
everything
love
else.
is the toilet paper because that was like, oh, we're running out of it. What are we going to wipe our asses with?
Well, that's
And
what we're
to
seeing on the outside of the candle is all of that stuff and your costume and the mask and
yeah, I
it's
mean
all COVID related.
there's the
Yeah.
virus
I like that.
with the toilet paper.
Yep.
I'm so
Yeah.
fucking confused.
These are now collector's items.
You damn Skippy, they are. Look, and they haven't been burned either.
She's got none left. You've got
Well,
not a box in your back room of this stuff at all.
I've got a couple of them still. A couple. But yeah, I think that I was really impressed with those. That kept me afloat for quite some time because I had not been paying into unemployment. I was a 1099. I mean, I was doing taxes and stuff, but I wasn't like paying into unemployment taken out of my paycheck regularly. I was just paying what I owed at the end of every year.
yeah,
And when I filed for unemployment, California was the same as everywhere, where it was just a shit show. They were underprepared for everybody in the world to file. So, like,
Right.
I didn't get unemployment until like 3 months after I filed,
oh
and I wound
wow,
up getting a giant lump sum. But it was great because I took that lump sum, and that's what I used to move and get a new apartment. So it worked out just perfect. But yeah, those candles got me through. Thank you.
hell yeah.
You mentioned the palm tree thing, and that stuff like that, and the medieval torture stuff. Man, people are just gruesome to other people. They were horrible.
Sick.
Yeah, Saw is all based on true stories.
Is it?
Yes.
I feel like it could be.
I know. Somebody had to come up with that shit, and that just doesn't pop up in somebody's mind.
He's still out there.
Yeah, this is why. What's that other show? Final Destination. I cannot drive behind a truck loaded with wood. Gonna die.
Do you know what the best things to do when you're on a road trip together and you have somebody sleeping in the passenger seat? If you ever get the opportunity where there is a car being towed backwards, or a Mack truck specifically being towed backwards, you can pull up behind it and it looks like it's facing you, and then you slap the person's chest right next to you and you're like, oh my God, wake up! And they wake up and there's like a head-on collision ready to happen.
My wife would kill me. She would kill me.
Well, I sometimes I don't wonder why I haven't been married.
Well, especially if it's someone that isn't used to what you do, and they walk in and you've got things hanging from your eyelids. Like every day, I walk in and you've got something. You're eating a roach. You got things hanging from your eyelids.
Yeah, but she's not even mentioned anything about any of the after parties. So we'll leave those alone. That'll be like part 2.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, like I normally go right to bed after the show at 9:30. Like,
of course, I know. Yeah. I never had to wait up for you.
Ever.
Sideshow after parties might be dangerous.
That's a song.
Yeah, it was, I think, was it Virginia Beach where there's the boardwalk and then there was that arcade, and after the convention everybody went into this like after hours, or it was a haunted house, and it was like somebody knew somebody who ran it, and we all got into like the little cars, the little 2-person cars that go through the haunted house, but it was just us, like 25 weirdos from the tattoo convention, and then the power went out. And we were stuck there in the middle. It was terrifying, but it was one of the best kind of like bizarro.
I think it was. It's like all the bizarre people go into the haunted house.
After hours.
Yeah. And it was like, wait, this is like such an oxymoron. I don't understand. Oh my gosh. I had to check the text, or I keep saying text. Check the chat real quick, make sure we didn't miss any questions. Natalie has made a point and says that this is the episode where the word labia is a record. Yeah, I agree. We've said labia more on this episode than we have any other episode that we didn't.
You mean labia?
No, labia.
I love that energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great labia energy. It's good stuff. But yeah, I'm looking at the time. We are out of time. Reggie, we're going to ask you to stick around and not go anywhere while we bring this to a close. I do want to thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Of the closet. We appreciate it. The atmosphere has been great. I got to reach over and get my notes because everybody knows I have to do this every freaking week. Jason and Kathy, both who were in our chat tonight. I want to thank Jason at Bad Company Barbecue. Check him out, badcompanyBarbecue.com. He's on the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, and I think the TikToks. Kathy, Music and More Records. Kathy, if you look behind Ace, he uncovered your logo this time and didn't cover it with the Cars album cover. So check out Kathy at Music and More Records again on all of the lovely social medias. Thanks to Natalie, our moderator, for coming in. Lou, Jason, Kathy, everybody else that was watching. But most importantly, Reggie, thank you for being a part of our lives tonight and bringing this shattered heart back to one piece.
Anything I could do for you.
I feel that I can now continue with life and I'll be okay.
You got closure.
I did. I got closure. It took a while.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was so nice.
If you want to call it nice, we appreciate that. We'll be back. We'll be back next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Can I say that, or is that like copyright infringement?
Nah, you're cool.
Oh, fuck it. I said it anyway. All right.
Let me say one thing if you don't care.
Two. I'll give you two things.
Thank you. We had mentioned not only Reggie coming on, but another guest. I want everyone to know that guest has canceled, so hopefully we can reschedule. And that one broke my heart.
Yeah, your heart was broke because of next week's guest that's no longer going to be here.
So next week, we'll either do a show or do the Spirit Box or both. We'll do something.
Yeah, we'll do something. Either way, we'll be back. So until then, we'll talk to you guys later.